but I want to make it, I keep wanting to remind you that I'm trying to build this course as we go along. So what I do tomorrow, it depends a lot about what I did the last 2 days. I'm looking for feedback from you. I'm looking for your response to what we're doing to try to convince me that we're on the right track. But I need to know things that you specifically want to get from this course, because it takes me time to get them integrated into the schedule. And if you wait until next Wednesday and say, hey, I need this, it's going to be tough.
โอเคครับก็เขาก็เน้นย้ำอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะฮะสิ่งที่เขาต้องการก็คือว่าเขาบอกออกตัวตั้งแต่ตอนแรกแล้วว่าไอ้ตารางสอนสำหรับเนี่ยของเขาเนี่ยก็คือว่ามันค่อนข้าง flexible นะฮะเพราะนั้นก็ส่วนใหญ่แล้วเขาก็พยายามที่จะจูนให้มันตรงกับความต้องการของพวกเราทุกคนเพราะฉะนั้นถ้าเราอยากได้อะไรหรือว่าอยากให้เขาเน้นตรงไหนก็ ฟีดแบ็กได้เลยนะครับเขาก็จะเอาไปปรับปรุงสุดครับเห็นเขาบอกว่าวันนี้นะครับเขาก็จะเก็บข้อมูลช่วงนี้นะว่าเราต้องการอะไรสนใจอะไรเขาก็จะเอาไปจัดให้นะก็คืออาจจะพรุ่งนี้หรือนี้อะไรก็ประมาณนั้นนะครับ
Okay. Actually, I want to know like how to apply to like many forms. So because of many of us we know like all the basic, many of basic, but we don't know how to apply, how to use when normally use like something like that. So like sometimes we go to in the real situation. So I want to like how to I work with a basketball player. So many times we have the problem to like, apply training, something like that, from the basic science to real training. Like either in the exam, also like have the problem in this part because sometimes we don't like get it. I don't know what is it, something like that. Like what is the like we know that the difference between center and point guard, how to train the different, like something like that. So I want to know something like more specific, something like that for me.
Trying to think exactly what you're asking for that we could actually use here. You all know well, most of you, since you're all physical, exercise physiology teachers, right? You know the theory, right? But are you asking how to actually apply that? Yeah. You don't know how to do that.
We know, but sometimes like we stay on the like training standing. So sometimes the standing is the chain with the subject we choose. Like in the I have a predicting, I have a master athlete, I have a many sports, so all is different. So I want to look at the key point that we had to look at that first and how to apply it.
So apply these principles to all sports.
Yeah.
Okay. Still not quite there. I know one of the try again. Ask me again in a different way.
Okay. More specific, right?
Yeah.
Like
Is there any? I mean, you talked about the difference between a point guard and a center.
yeah, like because sometimes we get that point like So one time I get an exam about like quarterback.
Okay.
Get so how we train, different training from that, but it's so different like quarterback or linebacker or running back. But for the like a power forward between center is so close. So but they have a different skill, a little bit different skill. So how we separate the training and how we can call concept to them.
I think that's even beyond this certification exam.
But I just want to get a key point, how can I look at the point. First we have to look and easy to get a program. Because we know our principal training program, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, but when we apply, it's so very, very big. So something like more specific, something like that.
Okay, I'll think about that.
Some idea.
I want to think about that, and then I'll
Yeah.
get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Super. Just me thinking about that, it changes the whole schedule. Right?
No,
It changes.
maybe another president
changes
they
everything.
want another thing like don't seem like me.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just saying that things like that to get you exactly what you need, and I'm sure there's others in your situation that might require a lot of flipping things around. You may not want to spend 2 hours on the Krebs cycle like I have planned. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But Cole wants that. Cole likes that stuff.
Maybe Ajahn Todd will help like, about the care cycle.
We'll let Paul, yeah, he likes it. He likes Krebs cycle. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna think about that. This is a point that is, I think it is key in evaluating your individual programs. Okay. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Your job is to improve performance. And if you do not improve performance, you're not doing your job. I just had a conversation out there about how to evaluate the effectiveness of this course. Okay? I said there's only one way. Okay? You've got to see if the athletes these students are working with, if they improve performance. Okay? If they get even better from your new coaching as from your old, that determines the effectiveness of this program. To me, passing a CSCS or whatever it's called exam, that's just a test. I'm not going to use you as an example. Should I use you as an example? Can I talk about your example? About you saying you have knowledge, but you don't have the application.
Oh, yeah, sure that. Sure.
Toss has told me, you know, he's a doctor of exercise, right? Really, really smart. But like all of us, I mean, I was in kind of the same boat he was, and I've seen it in a lot of my colleagues in past universities. They're very good at the theory. Okay, they can explain everything, okay? But they really can't go out and train an athlete. They don't have that connection between the theory, this is how it's supposed to work, and actually making it happen on the field, right? So, if Toss can't actually make that connection yet, and he goes and takes the CSCS, which is a knowledge exam, and he passes it, what value is the CSCS? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got a certification, but if I can't do it, what good is my certification? Right? And that's kind of the attitude I have about this whole thing. It's like, we have 2 weeks, prepare you for an exam. Is that what we should be doing? Or is it should be preparing better coaches and preparing better teachers so the performance of your athletes you're responsible for improves? And my argument is the second one. Did anybody understand any of that?
I think we understand. Yeah. So if we can have both, I think it's.
You want both? Yeah, let's both. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you both. Okay. But again, it's a work in progress.
And do you have the topic of the periodization in your talk during this 2 weeks?
Periodization, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I would love to hear.
That's super simple, periodization.
Okay, very simple.
Oh, it's so simple. I can tell you in five minutes. There, see, that's another good example. I can tell you about periodization in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, but to create a periodized program for a specific sport,
It's very difficult.
that's another story.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll give you my experience.
Maybe you have like the good trick to give us to like you have a trick to give us to
Yeah.
design the periodization to specific sport.
Yeah. I was a track coach in a university for weight throwers, right? Shot put, discus, hammer thrower. I was the coach. Okay. I said, "Great, coach, you're really smart, right? You know all this stuff." I said, "Yeah, I know all this stuff." I said, "Okay, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna make a season plan for my athletes." I individualized it based upon their experience, based upon their age and maturity, based upon a lot of individual things, their particular event, where they were in their strength development, all of these different things to make an individual periodized program for each of the athletes. And when I sat down and looked at it on the page with all the nice little graph on there, I'm going, what do I do now? Okay, well, it was an eye-opener. It's like, yeah, I know all about periodization, but to actually go and put it into practice, that's a different ballgame. Right? So yeah, I'll take that into consideration when we talk about periodization. That's okay. You only got one more day anyway. Oh, here, we're back to this question, right? You got a little distracted. All of this previous discussion was to emphasize the idea that performance is all there is to our job. And to know if someone improves their performance, we have to have some measurable variable to evaluate. If I'm a triple jumper, for example, if my triple jump improves by a foot, that's an improved performance. It's very easy to see. But there's a lot of training that goes in, a lot of teaching that goes in to triple jumping before you try to extend your personal best. So you need to have ways to evaluate, to measure the different steps building up to trying maximal effort. But everything you do, in my mind, everything you do must be measurable. You must be able to see it, measure it, and then be able to repeat it. Kind of like a scientific method. Kind of like doing research, right?
โอเคครับ อย่างที่เขาพูดไว้ตอนแรกก็คือหน้าที่ของพวกเราก็คือ strength and conditioning coach นะฮะก็คือเพื่อที่จะ improve นะ performance ของนักกีฬาหรือว่าอาจจะเป็นคนไข้ก็แล้วแต่วิธีการหนึ่งที่เราจะสังเกตได้ว่าไอ้ performance ของนักกีฬาหรือว่าคนไข้ก็ได้ improve ขึ้นเนี่ยก็คือเราก็จะต้องมีการทดสอบเราก็ต้องหา test แบบทดสอบที่สามารถที่จะวัดได้แล้วก็เห็นได้
In Malaysia, when they do a warm-up, this is in all the schools, I saw it 100 times, okay? In all the schools, and even saw it in their national football team. Okay? They would begin their workout with stretching exercises. Does anybody else do that? You warm up by doing stretching exercises.
มีใครไหมฮะก็พวกเราที่ใช้ก็คือในช่วง warm up ก็คือใช้ stretching exercise
No? Well, they do, okay? And one of the exercises they do is stretching their wrists. And they go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It means 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Every warm up. This is part of their warm up. Okay? Now, if I'm a football player, what good does stretching my wrist do for my football playing? If I can't measure this, okay, if I can't connect this to scoring a goal or preventing a goal, then I shouldn't have this in my program.
สิ่งที่สำคัญอีกอันหนึ่งก็คือว่าเวลาที่เราจะดูว่าไอ้นักกีฬาของเรามีการ improve ขนาดไหนเนี่ยก็คือ test ก็คือที่บอกไปแล้วก็คือแบบทดสอบเราต้องให้มันตรงกับเขาเรียกอะไรฮะ specific กับตรงกับเขาเรียกกับกีฬาใช่ทักษะที่นักกีฬาใช้นะฮะมันถึงจะมีประโยชน์
I asked Nut the other day if, as a swimmer, did he do run training? Did they go for runs? Okay. And he said, you said yes? He said no. He said yes. I know, he said yes. He said yes, okay? So his coach asked them to go for a run. They're a swimmer, remember? And they go in for a run. Why would they do that? He said for warm-up. You're at the swimming pool, you're getting ready, and you warm up by going and running around the pool, or you go out and run out in the road and come back. That doesn't make any sense. Let's say that if one for one, why would he do it besides a warm-up? Because warm-up doesn't work. Why would you have him do running? Why would you have a swimmer do running? No one has any idea. Okay. The normal answer is to increase your aerobic power or endurance. Right? But he's a swimmer. Okay? A swimmer doesn't increase aerobic endurance by running. He could run, well, a good example is Lance Armstrong. He's a pretty good bicyclist. Okay? He won 7 Tour de France. And after he retired, or after he was banned from the sport, he decided to do a marathon. Okay? Now he's got a heart the size of an elephant. Okay? He's got a cardiac output of about 7 liters. Okay? Stroke volume about 4 quarts. Okay? It's huge heart. Okay? his max VO2 is something like 77 mLs per kg per minute. Okay? Crazy. But when he went to be a marathoner, his performance in the marathon was equal to someone who might have a max VO2 of 60. Okay? His heart and his muscles were trained for cycling. Okay? His heart was not trained for running. It's different. You know, you think, well, I'm using my legs for both of them, but they're different. So if I use running as a tool to improve performance in swimming, that doesn't make much sense. But the way to determine if it works or not is by looking at performance. Okay? Measure it. Measure their performance. Measure their VO2 if you can do that. Measure their lactate tolerance. Okay? See if the actual running actually improved the swimming performance. But if you just think in your head, oh, I think it should work, or I've seen it before, our national team does it, so it should be good enough for everyone else. You're just playing in the dark. You're just hoping for success. And that's not what we want. Right? Any of that?
โอเคสิ่งที่เขาพยายามพูดก็คือเราจะต้องเลือกโปรแกรมการฝึกแล้วก็แบบทดสอบเนี่ยที่มันมีความเฉพาะเจาะจงกับกีฬาแต่ละประเภทหรือทักษะการเคลื่อนไหวในกีฬาแต่ละประเภท
Otherwise, your time would be better spent watching reality TV. Can you translate that?
ก็คือ
No, you're not going to? No, can't be that way. Let's say, here's an example. I'm training my athlete to do a one-legged squat, okay, or a pistol. Okay, and they go down at the bottom, they roll the hips under. Okay, so obviously they don't have some mobility in one of their joints. Now I know for me, okay, my challenge is in my ankles. I don't have the mobility in my ankles to get all the way down without compromising my form. Okay, so what I do, what I have done, I have tried to increase the mobility of my ankle. And you might see people do this. You take a long rubber band such as you use with your pull-up woman. Long rubber band, very tight, about 50 kilograms in resistance. Tie one end around the stationary object, put the other one around my ankle, then push it as far as I can so that the band is pulling my tibia over top my talus, okay, trying to open up that space.
นี่ก็ยกตัวอย่างนะก็คือว่าที่ก็ยกตัวอย่างก็คือว่าบางครั้งเนี่ยก็คือเราจะต้องหาไอ้จุดที่มันเป็น limitation ในการเคลื่อนไหวของแต่ละการออกกำลังกายหรือว่าแต่ละกีฬาแต่ละประเภทแล้วก็เทรนตรงนั้นเราไม่จำเป็นต้องเทรนที่มันดีอยู่แล้วเราก็หาจุดที่มันเป็น limitation อย่างเช่นที่เขาพยายามยกตัวอย่างก็คือในท่าเมื่อสักครู่ที่เขาทำเนี่ยก็คือปัญหาของเขาเนี่ยก็คืออาจจะไม่อยู่ที่นีหรือว่าอยู่ที่สะโพกแต่ว่าอยู่ที่ในส่วนของ ankle เพราะนั้นเขาก็เทรนเฉพาะในส่วนที่มันเป็นจุด weak point ของเขาก็คือ ankle ก็คือโดยพยายามหารูปแบบการเทรนก็คือ rubber band นะอาจจะช่วยได้
So I did it over a period of time, a long enough time that I thought that I should be able to see a change. How did I determine if that was an effective exercise? How do you think I determined that? Why am I trying to increase mobility in my ankle in the first place?
อันนี้ก็ถาม ก็คือถามว่าทำไมเขาจะต้องทำให้เพิ่มให้ความยืดหยุ่นของส่วนของข้อเท้าเขาด้วย
Yeah, I'm trying to perform a squat, right? That's my performance goal, okay? And this particular exercise has been developed by physical therapists the best physical therapists, this is the exercise that they suggest that you do to improve flexibility in your ankle. Okay? But when I did this over time, like 6 weeks, okay, I found that I couldn't improve performance. Okay? There was no improvement in my ankle flexibility. Okay? This is something I can actually see. Right? Did this exercise work? I look at it and no, it doesn't. I can't get any further. Okay? Can I measure it? Yeah, I can measure how far I go down before my hips go under. Okay? Is it repeatable? Yeah, of course, I can repeat it. And from that, I determined that this was a waste of time. So I threw that out of my training routine.
ก็อย่าง อย่างที่บอกอะก็คือก็พยายามเลือกนะฮะก็คือแบบฝึกแล้วก็แบบทดสอบนะให้มันตรงกับไอ้สิ่งที่เราต้องการที่จะพัฒนาอย่างเช่นในกรณีของสปอร์ตเนี่ยที่เขามีปัญหาเรื่องในส่วนของ mobility ของ ankle เขาก็พยายามเทรนนะฮะแล้วก็ดูว่าเราจะรู้ได้ไงว่ามันพัฒนาเราก็วัดจากไหนก็คืออันนี้ก็คือวัดจากไอ้ตัว performance ที่มันเพิ่มขึ้นเขาสามารถทำ deep squat ได้มากขึ้นหรือว่ายกน้ำหนักได้มากขึ้นนะครับ
And you have to do that to every part of your training, every part of your training plan. Anything you do, if it's not observable, if it's not measurable, if it's not repeatable, you don't want it in your program. That's just one more part of your program that is a question. It's like, oh, I hope it works. I don't know if it will. You're wasting people's time.
อันนี้ก็คือเน้นนะฮะก็คือว่าสิ่งที่เราทำเนี่ยก็คือว่ามันต้องวัดได้แล้วก็เห็นการเปลี่ยนแปลงนะฮะแล้วก็สามารถรีพีทได้นะฮะก็คือทำซ้ำเนี่ยก็คือว่าสามารถรีพีทได้
What has happened in the past when I presented these ideas to coaches, okay, particularly collegiate coaches? The question always is, well, if I take all these things out, then my practice will be this long. Okay? I may have, instead of my normal 2-hour practice, I might only have an hour. How can I accomplish anything in only an hour?
อันนี้ก็ยกตัวอย่างครับก็คือถ้าสมมติว่าเราสามารถวิเคราะห์ได้ถึงว่าอะไรที่จำเป็นที่เราจะต้องฝึกที่เราจะต้องเทรนแล้วเนี่ยบางครั้งเนี่ยก็คือโปรแกรมการฝึกของเราเนี่ยก็คือปกติมันมี2 ชั่วโมงเนี่ยก็คือถ้าเราเทรนจริงๆแล้วเราพยายามเขาเรียกว่าเอาสิ่งที่ไม่เกี่ยวข้องหรือไม่ตรงกับกีฬาที่เราเล่นเนี่ยออกเนี่ยมันก็อาจจะเหลือแค่ชั่วโมงเดียวก็เพียงพอแล้วนะที่จะพัฒนาในส่วนของนักกีฬาตรงนั้นเพราะฉะนั้นเราก็ต้องวิเคราะห์ครับว่า
Well, that's an example of you're looking at what people did before. What has everyone done already? What does everyone else do? And everyone else has a 2-hour practice. Okay? If I only do 1 hour, I can't get it accomplished. I can't match what everyone else is doing. So people are afraid to cut their practice down to a real distance, a real time. That's more practical because everyone else is going much longer. And there's no evidence that just because it's a long practice makes it a good one.
ปัญหาหนึ่งก็คืออย่างที่เขาบอกก็คือบางครั้งเนี่ยก็คือว่าบางครั้งเราเทรนเป็นอย่างอื่นด้วยก็คือว่ามันไม่ตรงกับสิ่งที่นักกีฬาต้องการนะฮะอันนั้นก็คือทำให้ช่วงระยะเวลาการเทรนเนี่ยมันยืดยาวไปเพราะฉะนั้นแต่ว่าสิ่งหนึ่งก็มันเป็นอาจจะเป็นความเชื่อของนักกีฬาเขาเวลาที่เขาต้องการแข่งขันแล้วต้องการเปรียบเทียบกับคนอื่นเนี่ยถ้าสมมติว่าเราไปบอกให้นักกีฬาเนี่ยเขาลดโปรแกรมเทรนจาก2 ชั่วโมงเหลือ1 ชั่วโมงบางครั้งเขาก็ไม่เข้าใจเหมือนกันว่าเอ๊ะทำไมจะต้องลดนะฮะแต่ว่าจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยมันควรจะลดก็คือตัดไอ้สิ่งที่ไม่จำเป็นเนี่ยออกก็คือทำให้ไอ้ตัวโปรแกรมที่เฉพาะที่เป็นประโยชน์เอามาใช้
Swimming is a good example of this exercise creep getting longer and longer. Right? A typical professional swimmer will swim 15,000 meters a day, right? Yet there's no evidence that swimming 15,000 meters makes me a better swimmer. If you think about it, what is a sprinter doing swimming 15,000 meters a day. It's like asking Usain Bolt to train for the 10K when he's trying to be a sprinter. Okay? So the science is there. Everyone knows it, yet everyone does 15,000 meters because everyone else is doing 15,000 meters.
อันนี้ก็สิ่งที่เขาพยายามยกตัวอย่างก็คืออย่างเช่นในนักกีฬาว่ายน้ำนะถึงแม้ว่าจะเป็นสปรินเตอร์ก็คือว่ายระยะสั้นแต่ว่าทำไมเขาก็สงสัยว่าทำไมทุกคนจะต้องเทรนถึงว่ายระยะก็คือระยะสะสมนะฮะก็คือเป็น1,500เป็นหมื่นนะต่อวิหมื่นเมตรต่อวิซึ่งมันไม่จำเป็นเลยแต่ว่าก็คือสิ่งที่เขาพยายามเน้นก็คือว่าอันนี้มันอาจจะเป็นในเรื่องของความเชื่อนะของนักกีฬาว่านักกีฬาคนอื่นนักกีฬาแชมเปี้ยนชิพเคยเทรนอย่างนี้เขาก็ทำตามอะไรประมาณนี้
One of the best exercise physiologists in history, named Dave Costell from Ball State University, he created like 500 research articles that basically define how we think of exercise physiology. He was the best. Okay? And he convinced the college swim team that he had his college at Ball State University. He convinced them to conduct this experiment. Half of the team swam their normal distance, something like 10,000 yards, 10,000 meters a day, okay? Which was normal for all swim teams of that area. And he had another half only swim 3,000 meters. 3,000 versus 10,000. The normal versus what theory suggests is probably the right distance. Now, it's very difficult to take your team, if I'm the coach of the swim team, my college team, and take half of my people and do what I normally do, and then take the other half and do something crazy. Right? But Costa was such an influence that he convinced the team, the swim coach to do it.
อันนี้ก็เขาก็ยกตัวอย่างเดวิดคอสติลที่ทุกคนคงรู้จัก เรียน exercise physio คือแต่ง textbook แล้วก็มี publication ค่อนข้างเยอะนะก็คือเขาก็พยายามก็คือเขาก็เจอปัญหาเดียวกันนะฮะก็คือพยายามเขาเป็นswimming coach นะฮะเขาพยายามที่จะ convince swimming coach ว่าการเทรนที่ถูกต้องเนี่ยก็คือต้องเทรนเฉพาะให้มันเขาเรียกว่า specific กับกีฬาแต่ประเภทนั้นๆทีนี้ก็คือเขาก็ทำการทดลองนะก็ถ้าเป็นสปรินเตอร์เนี่ยก็คือไม่จำเป็นจะต้องเทรนก็คือเก็บระยะทางสะสมเยอะก็คือก็เราเปรียบเทียบเป็น2กลุ่มก็คือกลุ่มหนึ่งก็คือเทรนประมาณเท่าไหร่นะ10 กิโลนะ10 กิโลกับอีกอันนึงก็คือเทรน3 กิโลเมตรต่อวันนะฮะแล้วเปรียบเทียบผลกันว่าผลนักกีฬาเขาเนี่ยกลุ่มไหนเนี่ยจะมี performance improvement ที่ดีกว่ากัน
What he found was he found no difference between the groups. No difference between the sprinters, same speeds. No difference between the endurance, same speeds. Strokes didn't matter. Okay? Swimming 10,000 yards versus 33,000, no difference. Wow, that's pretty important. Okay? If you've ever swam 10,000 yards in a single day, that's hard. Okay? It just wears you out mentally, right? No? See, he's worn out just thinking about it. Right? Costa publishes this in the most significant journals out there. I think it was Nature, if you're familiar with that journal. That's the ultimate. Okay? He published this, showed that swimming less is just as good as swimming more. Right? How many swim coaches do you think went from 10 down to 3? None. No one does this. And even his coach, that coach of his team, didn't cut it down to 3. He kept it at 10. So,
ผลที่เขาพบก็คือว่ามันได้ผลก็คือไม่ต่างกันนะระหว่างกลุ่มที่ต้องว่ายเป็น10 กิโลต่อวันกับกลุ่มที่ว่ายแค่3 กิโลเนี่ยก็คือในส่วนของ performance ก็คือพัฒนาก็คือไม่ต่างกันนะ
And this is something you're going to run into as a coach. If you if you start doing things like this, the way that has been shown over and over again to be the most effective, and it's different from what everyone else is doing, okay, you're going to have a very difficult time convincing the old guys that the new way is probably better.
อันนี้ก็เป็นเรื่องที่เรา พบกันประจำนะเวลาที่เราจะใช่ไหมเราเป็นนักวิทยาศาสตร์การกีฬาก็คือเราก็จะมีโค้ชนะที่เขาเคยเทรนอยู่แล้วนะเขาก็จะพยายามเขาเรียกว่าอะไรฮะก็คือว่าไม่เปลี่ยนแปลงโปรแกรมที่เขาเคยฝึกเพราะว่านักกีฬาเขาเคยประสบความสำเร็จจากโปรแกรมที่เขาให้แต่ว่าปัจจุบันเนี่ยก็คือเรามีความรู้ทางด้านวิทยาศาสตร์การกีฬาเพราะนั้นก็คือเราก็ควรจะใช้แต่ว่าอันหนึ่งก็คือว่าข้อยากลำบากก็คือว่าเราต้องคอนวินเขา ให้เขาเชื่อตามเราให้มากที่สุดนะต้องใช้ความพยายามครับ
So you really have to believe in what you're doing and be a very confident individual to be able to challenge the status quo. What is normally done. Okay. Another instance, one of the best basketball coaches in college history in the United States, his name was Bobby Knight, and he coached at Indiana University, and he won 3 national championships. Okay. And he knew that training his basketball team for 1 hour was sufficient. Okay. You go in, you do 1 hour of very focused, very specific training, and then let them go home. Let them go eat. Let them recover. Let them study, for heaven's sakes. Right? And even though he continued to win with this 1 hour training sessions, everyone else in the profession was doing 2 and 2.5 and 3 hours. Did it make them better? There's no evidence. Okay. Bobby Knight did it for 1 hour. He won national championships. Why didn't everyone do it?
อันนี้ก็พยายามยกตัวอย่างอีกตัวอย่างหนึ่งนะก็คือเป็นนักบาสเกตบอลนะที่อีกก็เทรนแค่ชั่วโมงเดียวนะฮะก็สามารถที่จะชนะนะก็คือแชมเปี้ยนชิพในNational Championshipเนี่ย3 ครั้งติดต่อกันนะเมื่อเปรียบเทียบกับทีมอื่นนะซึ่งเทรนก็คืออาจจะ2 ชั่วโมงหรือ3 ชั่วโมงนะ
As a coach, I think you want to base what you do on scientific evidence. Right? You want to not just guess or hey, it feels right. You want to have the science behind it. Right? You know that when I'm training at 4 millimoles of lactate, when I train that, I'm going to train my endurance. Okay? I'm going to become a better distance runner. You want to know exactly. If I can measure 4 millimoles, great. I know I'm doing exactly what I want to do. Okay? So you want to think of it as like a physician. If you went to your doctor and you said, "Hey doc, yeah, I got this thing in my nose. What do I do about it?" He says, "Oh, I don't know. I'll wave my hand over it." And he says, "Here, take this," and he stuffs something up your nose, or puts some water in your nose, or takes a frog and rubs it on your forehead. What would you think about your doctor? And that's what a lot of coaches do. That's what a lot of trainers do. They just rub frogs on people's on their foreheads. Okay? You need to think of testing and retesting as a diagnostic tool. Am I doing what I think I'm doing? Okay? You got to test and then you got to retest. Pre-test, post-test. If there's no difference, you're doing something wrong. You got to change it. Okay? Then test it again and retest it. Oh, I see an improvement. I'll continue doing that. I test again. Oh, I see continual improvement. I test again. And I see a decrease in performance. I got to change it. So you're constantly changing your program based upon the results of your test and retest.
เพราะฉะนั้นในการที่จะประเมินว่าโปรแกรมการฝึกของเราเนี่ยได้ผลเนี่ยก็คือสิ่งที่เราจะต้องทำก็คือเราจะต้องทำการทดสอบหรือประเมินเป็นช่วงๆนะเพื่อที่จะดูว่า โปรแกรมของเราเนี่ยก็คือว่ามีประสิทธิภาพไหมถ้าเมื่อไหร่ก็ตามถ้าเราเทรนไปแล้วมันมีการพัฒนาขึ้นก็คือแสดงว่ามันมีประสิทธิภาพแต่ว่าเมื่อไหร่ก็ตามถ้ามันสมรรถนะของนักกีฬาลดลงเนี่ยแสดงว่าเราก็ต้องมาปรับโปรแกรมของเราให้ดีขึ้น
I was talking to Eck about we're both decathletes, or we used to be, right? And I remember when I was training for the decathlon, I was my own coach. Okay, I was out of college. There wasn't any professional coaches anyway, so I was my own coach. So what I did, I went and found a training program that was created by Bill Bowerman, who is the athletic coach at Oregon University, one of the best in history. Okay. He had a training program for the decathlon. I got this program and I followed it every single day exactly as he had suggested. It didn't improve my decathlon because when I followed it strictly, sometimes the workouts were too difficult. Sometimes they were too easy. Okay. But I followed them religiously anyway. And I didn't have this nice improvement in performance. Instead, I basically got to a point where the result was injury after a decrease in performance. If I would have been testing and retesting periodically, I would have known if the workout, if I should have been following it or if I should have changed it. Okay. Mistake I made a long time ago. Now I'm smarter.
อันนี้เขาก็พยายามยกตัวอย่างในเคสของเขานะก็คือเขาก็ไป copy เอาโปรแกรมของของโค้ชที่เก่งที่เทรนไตรกีฬาแล้วก็เอามาใช้ก็คือโดยที่ไม่รู้อะไรเลยก็คือทำตามเขาทุกอย่างแต่ว่าปัญหาก็คือว่ามันก็ทำให้เขาก็คือสุดท้ายแล้วเนี่ยทำให้เกิด injury เพราะว่าก็หนึ่งก็คือว่าอย่างที่เราทราบกันก็คืออันนี้ก็คือเข้าหลักการฝึกอีกข้อหนึ่งก็คือต้องอะไรฮะต้อง individualization ก็คือโปรแกรมของการฝึกเนี่ยก็คือต้องออกแบบให้เฉพาะแต่ละบุคคลเพราะว่าแต่ละบุคคลเนี่ยมันมีความแตกต่างกันเพศนะfitness level อายุเพราะฉะนั้นอันนี้ก็คือเป็นตัวอย่างหนึ่งนะฮะ
Okay, what's the take-home message? What have I been spending the last 15 minutes trying to emphasize at great length? What did you get? What pearl of knowledge have I been trying to tell you here?
So we talk about individualization of the training program. So it should be individualized for each athlete. So you should not, copy right training program from even they have they are a champion or something like that. But you have to individualize training program for each athlete, something like that.
Okay, that's one aspect.
Okay.
And you used a word that I didn't use, though.
Yeah.
He said you need to individualize the program.
Yeah, specific to.
Mm-hmm.
Specific to.
Specific skill for individual.
Yes. But that's a kind of an extension of the main idea. What's the main idea?
You have to change the athlete for the improved program.
Yeah. It's that first line. And it's so important that I spent a lot of time trying to give various examples of how important it is to a modern, successful coach, personal trainer, whatever we are, strength conditioning experts. Don't waste time if you can't measure it. Right, okay. Help. of you teach anatomy? Any of you teach anatomy? You teach anatomy? How many of you teach muscles? This is this muscle. There's where it starts. There's where it ends. Anybody know where your teres major is? Anybody?
Yeah.
Where's your teres major? Does anybody know? Besides two, he knows. Not pectoral, no. Teres. Three of you do, right? Everyone know? Okay. I'm gonna suggest to you again that when we're training, we should be training movements and not muscles. Okay? We should train movements and not muscles. A typical practice of when I in a weight room for a normal person, let's say, they just want to get stronger. You'll see them go into the gym and they'll jump onto one of the machines, like the bicep machine, and they'll work their biceps. 3 sets of 10 at 60%, 1 RM. Then they'll get off and they'll go to the tricep machine and they'll do the same thing. Then they'll go to the lat pull down, do the same thing. Leg extension, hamstring curls, and then adductor, abductor. And they've got all the muscles covered, right? That, we got that.
Okay, so what is the reason behind why you say that we should not train the muscle and train the movement?
Why not? Tell me.
Because I will tell. So if you tell.
Is that not obvious to you?
I think it's obvious.
Is it obvious to everyone? I know 2 agrees. But should we train movements over muscles? Why do you think so?
How the player use movement when they play sport.
If you isolate a muscle, okay, let's say I'm going to strengthen the biceps, and I isolate them, where in sport, where in life do you use this movement? When you're drinking your beer, right? But in other sports, when I do the bicep curl, I'm also using my shoulder, I'm also using my hip, I'm using my legs. It's one unit. So when I isolate it, how does that transfer to sport? How does that transfer to increase performance? Right? If I want to increase my ability to do an overhead smash, it's probably not going to do me any good to do bicep curls, even though the overhead smash uses the bicep. The bicep has got to be part of a bigger movement. It's a team. It's the bicep, it's a coracobrachialis, it's a latissimus dorsi. It's as a team. So to improve performance, I need to train movements and not muscles. But that's not always done, even with the best weight training coaches. You'll see in American football, in colleges, at universities, okay? At the biggest universities, you'll see these weight rooms that are as big as the Taj Mahal. Okay? You'll see like 20 benches for bench press. Okay? And you'll see like a dozen Smith machines, okay, for squats. You'll see, I mean, you can't even see the end of the room. It's so big. Okay? And we got these football players doing all these bench presses. But what good is a bench press in football?
ก็คือเขายกตัวอย่างก็ถามว่าเบนเพสเนี่ยถ้าเป็นนักฟุตบอลเนี่ยควรจะฝึกไหมเบนเพสอเมริกันฟุตบอลชอบที่
Yeah, the only place where I see it's going to be much good is if I'm a lineman. Okay, I'm the guys, the really big guys on the line pushing each other around. Okay, I'm going to be pushing like this, possibly. Okay, but when you train a bench press, it's in slow motion, right? So here I go. Hike. It really doesn't translate. It's the wrong speed. Okay, I'll give you an example of how that last principle was violated.
ก็อันนี้ก็คือเราก็ต้องรู้ว่าก็คืออย่างเช่นตัวอย่างเป็นเพสเนี่ยก็คือว่าแน่นอนก็คือว่านักกีฬาอเมริกันฟุตบอลเนี่ยมันต้องใช้ในการผลักแต่ว่าตัวความเร็วจังหวะในการผลักเนี่ยมันอาจจะไม่เหมาะกับในส่วนของเป็นเพสนะครับก็ต้องเลือกหาวิธีการอื่นที่จะเทรน
There's a very good team in West Virginia University, okay? And I remember reading in the newspaper about the fact that every one of their offensive linemen, there's 5 of them on the offensive line, every one of them could bench press 500 pounds, which is 227 kilograms. Okay? They could bench 500 pounds. Now, if any of you have ever bench pressed, you know that's a lot of weight, right? That's a lot of weight to bench press. I can only do like 200. I'm kidding. That's supposed to be great. These guys are strong. But when you look at their performance on the field, their front line always let the defenders in to tackle the quarterback. Okay? They had the highest sack rate of any team in the country. And a sack is when your quarterback goes back and the defense tackles him. Their line was no good. Okay? And just because they bench pressed 500 pounds didn't translate into improved performance. So here we got all these bench press machines, and we got all these men doing all these bench press machines, wasting time that they should have used in improving their line technique or doing some other strength training exercise, like a power exercise, so that they could actually perform better.
ก็คือปัญหาที่เขาพยายามบอกก็คือว่าต้องเทรนให้มันตรงกับไอ้ตัวนักกีฬาที่จะใช้จริงนะฮะก็คืออย่างเช่นเบนช์เพรสเนี่ยส่วนใหญ่มันก็คือแค่เพิ่ม strength แต่ว่าในส่วนของ linebacker ที่เนี่ยส่วนใหญ่ก็ใช้เป็น power นั่นก็น่าจะใช้เป็นลักษณะนั้นแทนนะ
So that's why nowadays we call like functional training.
Yeah, it's a similar idea. Yeah, you'll see functional training. The whole idea is that we're training specific movements. We're training movements that have a function. Okay? Functional movement. Right? Exactly.
But for the strength, we're going to be the same before we get the power. For adaptation in the muscle.
Okay, Paul asked, shouldn't I develop strength before I develop power?
True.
What do you think?
It's correct. The strength and speed is like opposite in the direction. We have the power is like in between.
It's real simple. Force equals mass times acceleration, right? That's strength. Power, force over time. Okay? Do you need to develop strength before you develop power? There's the equation right there. What happens if I decrease the amount of time in which I do the contraction and keep the force the same? Does my power increase? Right? So is that your answer?
I will get for the power training. Normally that we we're gonna get many of injury for the athlete. So if we don't do the strength before, so that I say.
Strength and power, it's the same idea. It's still about creating force, right? A strong person can create a lot of force. A powerful person uses the force they can create and does it very fast. And once again, if I have someone who's powerful and someone who is strong, pretty equal, how am I going to determine which one I want? How am I going to determine that I train for strength or power? Performance, that's always the answer, right? In the NFL, the National Football League, they have a combine, they call it, in which they evaluate college athletes who are preparing to go into the pros. Okay? And one of the tests that they use, okay, for...
This is bench test, right?
Huh?
They also use bench test to test.
Use what?
NFL, they use a bench test for test.
Yep.
180 and many pounds.
I'm sorry.
About 180 pounds, something like that.
It's 100 kilograms,
Yeah.
225 pounds. Okay? They use 100 kilograms, but everybody in the NFL can bench press 100 kilograms. That's not much weight. Okay? What they do is they evaluate how many times you can do it in a particular time, right? So what is that? When I take this 225 pounds and I see how many I can do, what am I measuring?
It's power endurance.
I'm measuring power, right? How many 200 kilogram bench presses can you do in a minute? Okay. That measures power. And in the NFL or in rugby, power is the key. It's not who's the strongest, it's the one who has the most power. You're looking at me with these faces like, what am I missing? What don't you get? What don't you understand? Help me.
โอเคนะฮะเข้าใจไหมฮะก็คือส่วนใหญ่แล้วกีฬาส่วนใหญ่ถ้าเป็นกีฬาประเภทเนี้ยส่วนใหญ่มันใช้ power จำเป็นนะฮะมากกว่าไอ้ตัว strength ถึงแม้ว่าจากสูตรเนี่ย strength ส่วนหนึ่งก็เป็นมันจากสูตรนะฮะก็คือ power มันก็มาจาก strength แต่ว่าส่วนใหญ่แล้วกีฬาส่วนใหญ่ก็จะใช้ในรูปลักษณะของ power ก็คือต้องทำออกแรงในช่วงระยะเวลาสั้นๆก็คือ power.
We know that I just look back for the daily that we have to train, like resistance training for the endurance hypertrophy, like something like that. So that's why from the period guys, so that's why I asked the question that how to apply to the real training.
Yeah, you do see that. You'll see that in periodized schedules, right? We'll start off with a preparation phase,
Yeah.
which we're basically preparing the body to train,
Yeah.
right? Then we have a strength phase, which you're developing strength, and then we have a power phase, which we take that strength and apply it with some speed, right? And that's supposed to increase your power safely, right?
Yeah.
I would suggest you do the same thing.
Yeah. That's why
Okay.
I asked the question.
But it doesn't require it.
Yeah.
Okay? There's other ways. If you have an athlete that has a certain strength level, I mean, there's a limit to how strong we can get, right? I could train all day, I mean, for years, and never be able to do 100 kilogram bench press. So I've got to look at another part of the equation, and that's the time element. So I need to train my speed over trying to increase force. And if I can improve my speed, improve my power, and I should improve performance.
ใช่
คือสรุปใช่ไหมครับ
This is an example of theory. Okay? You understand this perfectly, but how do you apply it? And what's confused you is that you've seen this periodized schedule, the template for everyone to periodize, and it doesn't make much sense. Okay? You're looking at that schedule and say, well, this has got to be wrong. How could this be wrong? This is physics. Physics doesn't change. But you're right, I see where you're going. I'm still working on it. Don't worry. We're going to get there. Explain all that. We're out of here. That means go away.